I was watching an old video from March of last year where Counter-Strike pros were asked which map they would remove from the active duty group of the game in favor of Dust 2, and I was very surprised at what Fur said. He went along with most of the other pros in the video and said Nuke since it was just updated and people didn't know the meta yet, but that's not what I found interesting. He said that Dust 2 shouldn't be added back to the map pool, rather that Nuke should be replaced by Tuscan, an old map that was popular in previous Counter-Strike games. He pointed out that a lot of pros supported Tuscan being added to the game, which can be backed up by another video asking pros what maps from previous Counter-Strike games they wanted to be played in CSGO, in which by far the most popular choices were Tuscan along with its counterpart Mill. So I decided to look into it and see if the official CSGO version of Tuscan is really as good as everyone cracks it up to be. But before I dive into the map itself, let's go into the history of Tuscan as well as the previously mentioned Mill. Now let me tell you a story about Counter-Strike's history and why these two maps are so closely aligned. Long ago, in the dark ages of 1997 to 2008, there was an esports organization called CPL, which hosted a lot of tournaments in its time. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you like Counter-Strike and you know that it's been one of the most popular competitive esports since the beginning of the genre. One thing you might not know is that Valve didn't always regulate the active duty map pool as much as they do now. In fact, the development of many classic maps from older games was actually paid for by esports organizations, and they were only allowed to be used in their tournaments. Some examples of this are Mirage, formerly known as DECPL Strike, as well as Mill, or DECPL Mill. Because of this, Mill was only allowed to be used in CPL tournaments. Now another esports organization that is still around today, CSGO, wanted to use this map. CPL didn't let them, so they contracted a map maker to do the old copy his homework but change it up a little so it doesn't look obvious you copied deal. This ended up making the bastard child between CPL Mill and Brute, the contracted map maker that we know of today as DE Tuscan. Funnily enough, Tuscan actually became a lot more popular than Mill, and is, in my opinion, a lot better than it as well. It replaces the hellhole Mill known as the Sewer with a much less OP basement area. It also improves bombsite B quite a bit, making it a lot less open and adding more verticality. Anyways, let's move on from Tuscan versus Mill and start talking about the pros and cons of Tuscan as a map. Let's start with the good. Tuscan has a lot going for it. It's got a lot of versatile routes to each bombsite, with 2 ways to each site, along with a mid route that could go to either. That's 5 possible routes to each site, and you may think, well, that is a lot of places the CTs need to keep their eyes on, exactly 1 for each player on the CT side. You can't expect one CT to hold off an A rush by themselves, can you? Well, in that regard, you're right. However, Tuscan balances this out by having numerous camping spots and forcing the Ts to have to either check every corner or be caught off guard by a CT. It also offers a lot of fast routes for rotation. If you follow this walkway up here down and through the building, you find yourself right outside of the A site, and vice versa. But that doesn't imbalance it for the Ts either. It sort of creates an equilibrium of fear between the Ts and the CTs. The Ts have no idea which spot the CTs will decide to camp, and the CTs have no idea which route the Ts will take to get another one of the bomb sites. One round, a CT might get an ace by sitting up on his box and picking off the Ts one by one, and the next, he might get wallbanged in that same spot by a sneaky terrorist hiding behind a door. It's like a game of rock, paper, scissors, where each CT camping spot is only powerful if the Ts don't expect someone to be there. And it's not like after a few matches all the spots will be used. I actually played a lot of this map against bots for this video, and found a lot of places I never knew were there the first time I played it. Now, I'm done ranting about how good this map is. It's a great map, but that doesn't mean it's perfect in its current form. Like it or not, the map needs a facelift. It was last updated in 2015, and while it looks fine how it is now, it's definitely not perfect. The old Mirage flower pot glitch still happens, the doors don't burst open when you shoot them like the ones from newer maps, and other just minor things. While the layout right now is great, why not just go all out on the whole you never know where they're coming from idea? If you go into no clip on this map, you can see there's this whole addition to connector that was never used. It's a shame, although I assume it was closed off to stay true to old versions of the map. You can see this plaza here would have been perfect to create a maze of corridors leading to mid. There's even a perfect camping spot for a CT quick enough to get there before the Ts do. Another thing I don't necessarily think is perfect is the aforementioned basement. It's sure better than the sewers from Mill, but I don't think it's perfect. I don't like that there's only 2 ways to get in and out, and it feels a lot less like a tunnels area and more like a quick way to get to A. I think the perfect way to remedy this is to move the T entrance to it over here and an exit entrance around this area near connector. With those changes, I think Tuscan would be a perfect map for competitive play, and I think it would become a very popular map as a whole. I would hope for it to be added to the active duty pool to replace a map like Mirage or Overpass, both of which I think have been in active duty for far too long. All in all, it's not our decision what Valve decides to do with the active duty maps, it's of course theirs, but I personally would love to see Tuscan get some love in the active duty map pool, if not just in the game itself.